Hello and welcome to the Smart Connections podcast and the Talk the Path podcast. My name is Anna Sanderlin. I am a warm-line facilitator for the University of Memphis Smart Center. The University of Memphis School of Social Work Smart Research, Training, and Treatment Center aims to provide evidence-based interventions for school-based mental health programming, increase access for school-based behavioral health programming in underserved areas, offer training on best practices in telebehavioral health, develop opportunities to research the use of technology in practice, and provide direct services to the state's most vulnerable populations. You can call the Smart Center at 901-678-1636. The University of Memphis Smart Center, in conjunction with the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, would like to present the Pathways to Behavioral Health Careers Project. The goals of the Pathways Project are to provide education and information on the various career opportunities in the field of behavioral health through presentations, increase interest in students in the field of behavioral health, provide opportunities for guidance with information regarding college, university programming that result in degrees for professions in the field of behavioral health, connect students with students in behavioral health programs and professionals in the field for further research. This podcast will feature students and professionals in the field to give a clear picture of the daily duties of these roles and how they help support their communities.
I'm Allison Lewis, school social worker with Rutherford County Schools. This is my 21st year with the Rutherford County school system, working as a school social worker. I have worked in K-12, pre-K-12, so I've worked with all different age groups. I'm currently working with our preschool population in special education intake and assessments and placement and compliance.
I'm Eileen Woodside. I'm also a school social worker with Rutherford County Schools. This is my 22nd year as a school social worker and 20th year with Rutherford County Schools. And I'm also pre-K through 20, work with 22-year-olds. And so I'm at an elementary school and then an alternative school. And then I work with some of our students that are in the process of transitioning into adulthood. And so that's just a little bit myself. I think all of us have our licensed school social workers, and I have my MSW as well.
I'm Tracy Wise, and I'm also a school social worker with Rutherford County Schools. This is my 12th school year as school social worker, and I've been with the district for extra years before that. I currently serve at middle school and high school, and I also serve as lead of our social work team. We have 19 school social workers, so I kind of help do the planning and leading for our team as well.
I'm Lexi Kirsten. I'm a school social worker as well. It's my second school year here in Rutherford County Schools. I've been doing social work for about 4 years now. Went back to school and got my master's in social work with a specialty in schools. And I work with elementary and high school.
I'm Puffs Abed. I'm also a school social worker with Rutherford County Schools. I have been with Rutherford County for 5 years now, and it is my first social work job. I currently work with middle school and high school with kind of a specialty in the behavior intervention classrooms with my middle school. So I work closely with a lot of behavior students. Thank you.
Well, thank you all so much for sharing a bit of background, and congratulations for having such a full range of individuals working. I mean, to hear people are there for 22 years and 5 years and 2 years, that's quite the accomplishment to make sure you are maintaining good staff, highly skilled staff, and also always onboarding individuals who are, fresh out of school or have, just started their career journey. Before we jump into those, I'd like to ask those who've been there for at least a couple of decades or so, would you mind sharing what made you stay? Because we all know there's a lot of things that cause burnout, and school systems, unfortunately, are victims of that. So please share with us, is it something specific to the school system that you're in that made you stay, or was some things that maybe we can learn from that too, for other individuals who are going to be listening to this podcast, and maybe they can incorporate?
I know for myself, so decades, yes. I I tell everybody that I love my job. And of course, everybody will say that there's parts of your job that are not fun. I think that goes with any job. But I truly love my job. And the thing that makes this job for me different is it is truly the people. When you go to work every day and see people who love their job and feel passionate about it, I it brings you back every day.
Really?
That's part of what makes the difference. When you do burnout, I know from when I tell, like, I have interns and things like that, you do have to have that balance of give 100% of yourself when you're at work, and then you give 100% of yourself at home. You have to kind of, it's hard to do. It's hard to do. But somebody told me one time, I think it was one of our social workers that's about to retire, but when you take your badge off at the end of the day and you do something ritualistic, whatever that is, but you take your badge off and you leave it, you're done with your day at work. And that kind of has helped me be like, all right, I finished, whether you stay just a little bit late that day or whatever it is, but when you're done, you're done. And just try to do something mentally like that to move on. That is one of the things that kind of helps out with burnout for me. But also just the people that you work with really helps.
Right. So big key part I heard there was good hiring decisions are being made at your school and across your school system, because again, like you said, being able to go to work with people who have, the same vision, the same commitment as you do. Of course, that's shared workload. You're not trying to, do a lot for others who are just there for a paycheck, or you're not feeling like the workload is unevenly distributed, because everyone kind of has that same, goal in mind. And so kudos for your district for having either good screening vetting processes or making sure that they have good referrals and linkages to ensure those that are doing good work and those examples are shining through, they're sending them on to the school system. Anybody else who's been there a while like to share a little insight about what makes you stay?
And I agree with you with the hiring and the people, and we are typically, included as a part of the interview process. So we can help with the questions and answering questions, also asking questions. So that has been helpful, and agree with everything Eileen said. I would just add too, as far as the profession or role of a school social worker is always changing. It's always different. Whether the role is changing or what you came to work that day and you thought you were going to do, and something new is coming up and you're going to go do that. But there's just opportunities again in school social work to work with different age groups too. So whereas I spent my first 10 years working with our students who are a part of a behavior intervention program in the county, then I moved to preschool, which was a whole completely different role and job and responsibilities. So just having that variety of ages, as well as, meeting as a team and talking through a lot of things that can be, the challenges, but having our team, which has grown so much over the past few years, just having that group that also understands what we're doing and, anything that we may be feeling or just kind of want to talk through. And that's definitely very helpful to not having that burnout.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate just hearing that bit of information. I love to hear that you have 19 social workers. I know we can always use as many, as possible, but that's a nice, number to hear that you have to, connect everyone and have good coverage and things like that, because, it's a fairly large district where I am. And, I'm not sure we have as many as we need, but I know the ones that we have, of course, they're, trying their best. And so I'd love to hear that you have, a substantial number. So thank you so much for sharing that. We'll jump right back into the questions. If each of you could tell me in this time just a little bit more about your educational journey, like what led you to social work, were there any barriers that you encountered? How did you overcome them? If you could just share a little bit about that.
I can go first. Since I'm new to the state of Tennessee, before that, truthfully, social work, school counseling, nothing. I never thought I'd be back in the schools. Never, don't count me in. I didn't want to go back to school. And it wasn't, my dream job was a juvenile probation officer in Chicago. That ended up not working out. But as soon as I turned 21, I went and started just in the mental health field, youth residential. And then I ended up at Cook County Juvenile. And 2 shoulder surgeries, they said you can no longer work in the juvenile center. So I ended up in the schools as a behavior interventionist. And at my old district, I piloted this reset program that is now here. So then my previous principal, she kept saying, go back to school, get your master's. You are doing the job of a social worker. You don't have the pay, you don't have the title. I said, fine. I went back, fell in love with it, just seeing the faces that could help the kids, just not only the kids, but the staff, bridging the gap with the families. It was huge. And then moving here and seeing the shift and just the different perspectives from where I came from to Tennessee, I've learned so much in just a short amount of time.
Wow, that's a very specific dream job, by the way.
And family members. So I was just like, it was a perfect opening. And I shadowed my aunt one day, who's an adult probation officer, and I was like, count me in. I'm in.
You bring up a really wonderful point that I love to amplify. The fact that you were doing the work. There are opportunities in social work to have a really great impact without doing, the higher level schooling or certifications or licensure. But certainly when it is a part of, a new dream that you have, you want to go ahead and move forward so that your impact can be as expansive as it needs to be, or you now have new resources because of, new licensure or new accreditation, things like that. But I really love, some of the very simple simplicity of social work. Some of it is simply, what is the need? How do I get you connected to the right individuals for that need? Of course, there are much more compounding, complex things that go into it. But I love that there is an opening for those who just may say, hey, school's not for me. I don't want to go all the way in, but you still can, give help in that way and find a career in that way. So thank you so much for mentioning that. Anybody else want to go and share?
I can go.
Okay.
So I originally, so I've always known that I wanted to work in schools. That was always just something, the idea of being able to work with kids has always been something that I've wanted to do forever. And so originally my education came from elementary education, got my bachelor's, graduated and was like, no, I can't be a teacher. It's not for me. And so that happened and I was devastated. And so I ended up getting a job with the child abuse hotline in Nashville, taking the abuse calls. And from there kind of was like talking to a lot of the other people there, and they were working on their masters of social work and, talking to me about it. And I realized, oh, like, I think this is the path that I'm supposed to go on, because I can actually work with kids and help families and bridge the gaps that we have in our communities with our schools. And so it got me in there, and I just knew immediately I wanted to work in the schools. And so I graduated with that. And that was the first job I applied for, was the schools. And so that's been the majority of my work is with the schools. I've worked a little bit in a hospital setting and just it was a wonderful experience, but I just knew like the school was definitely for me. And just getting to work with the kids every day and having a sense of community with the staff at each of the schools. So it's been wonderful getting to see the kids and growing with them and all of the staff.
Well, I always say the world of social work is almost if somebody dropped like a 500 puzzle piece, and then there's all these different entryways into it because it's interconnected, across so many disciplines. And, it's wonderful that you were able to, pivot without, penalty. Sometimes people feel like they're so far into a profession or, this job is, a really great, setting and they don't want to leave it. But kudos to you for saying, this is not feeding me in the way that I want, and let me look at this other opportunity, even though teaching is a wonderful job, but it wasn't the right thing for you. And again, because social work has so many arms, you're able to find, this great spot for yourself in the school system where, the need is, of course, it's high, it's fluid, it's dynamic. So it keeps us on our toes. That's why we always have to have, new education credits to, to keep up with the different needs. But it also keeps the work fresh, I think. So thank you so much for sharing that. Let's go next.
I'll do it. I started out thinking I wanted to be like a nurse or something, and anatomy, physiology, and microbiology had a different story for me. I was like, no, not going to do it. And so I was old school. I'm old, and those decades. And so it's when we had those catalogs at college where you go through the whole paper and go through, oh, what do I want to do with my life? And read, and I was like, man, social work, that sounds really good, right up my alley. So I took that intro to social work class and said, oh man, this sounds great. Started it, and then school social work. Yes, that is what I want to do. And went to my advisor, and my advisor said, do you play an instrument? No, no, I'm terrible. My mama tried, and no, I'm terrible. Do you sing? No, no, I'm totally off key. Do you play sports? Again, no, no, have black eyes from, no, I'm terrible. Do you act? Are you drama? No,
Well,
no,
thanks for making me feel good,
no,
counselor.
didn't cheer. I was pretty much average everything. Yep. No, what do you, I mean, or below par. She's like, well, you should not go into school social work. You are not going to connect with any students of any kind. And I was like, okay, I just need to, what am I going to do with my life again? I guess I should go back to that book. And I left there, and the next day, pretty much actually crushed. And then the next day I went to one of my other teachers that was in a class, and I was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I really thought I had it figured out. And she was like, well, that was the stupidest advice she'd ever heard from anybody. She's like, were you a student? I said, yes. She's like, how many students are filled with kids like you? And I was like, I guess the whole school. So I did. I went on, went to social work, became a school social worker. And I just say, students, it's about connecting. They don't care what you do. They don't care about how you sing. They don't care about any of that stuff. It's about, are you genuine or not? You can be goofy, you can be whatever. It's about being genuine. And so anyway, that was my path to being a school social worker. And here I am.
That she sounds like the person that's mentioned in various songs, like, this teacher or this whoever told me I couldn't do it. So kudos to you for not listening and moving forward. I actually thought you were going to say you wanted to be a country singer. You kind of sound like some of my favorite singers.
Well, in my car, I definitely am a country singer.
Right, Grammy nominated. But yes,
Oh, yes.
I love hearing that you were able to find another person to instill, what you already knew about yourself. Because that is absolutely 100% true. It's about connections. The kids are like truth screeners. They can tell when someone's just kind of pulling their chain or talking the talk, but not really walking the walk. And in this field, it's so important to be authentic, because you're going to be engaging so many different people, from so many different backgrounds, that you have to be honest about, what your confidence level is, what you're able to do, what you can provide for them. Because honestly, that's like they're really at a critical point if they're needing, different types of help. So I think, you are so right in saying, it's about connection, not you being able to know all the most recent songs that are on the radio or, being able to throw a ball down the field. Although sometimes that's impressive to some people, they really want to know, are you going to do what you say you're going to do, when it comes to working with me and providing assistance and help and advocacy. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Shania Twain, just kidding.
And I also think just making those connections is super important. Like that somebody is there to make that connection above anything else. And that was a big reason why I went into school social work. I did start in elementary education also. It was probably halfway through when I learned about school social work. And I was really, because I'd never even heard, obviously I've heard of social workers, but not school social workers. And so when I did hear more about, that profession, everything, knew that's exactly what I was created to be. That's how it was described in the book. I was like, this is exactly, what I want to do. I want to work in the schools, but I want to work with families too. I want to get in there and figure out what does the child need to be successful at school. We have so many kids. Some kids, it's quite obvious what they need, what they're going through, because they'll tell you, or you can just see it. But there's also so many kids that you don't know at all. But when you do have that connection, you learn a lot of things. And there's so much. My school counselor in high school was that person for me. And she really, I mean, she's done so much for me, but she really spent that time to get to know me and just help me along the way and be that support person. So that was exactly why I went into the field, is because I wanted to be that person for everybody. And also help them, because I can know, I know things that will help people that families don't know, or they're super stressed and they just can't, it's too much to even think about. So to kind of break that down for families and help everybody eliminate those barriers for whether family or school student personal success. So then I'm happy with my choice. Decades later also.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Absolutely sounds like Kismet, like meant to be, you were able to see these things that were required, that were shining within you. And if, you got affirmation of it, being in a wonderful environment year after year. So happy to hear that, because I think it's important for students to know, especially in this day and age when there is, more and more information and opportunities for all these different and unique jobs. But it's good to know it's okay to go somewhere and find your niche and stay there, because you're doing exactly what feels right and what's necessary and critical, especially if it matches and aligns so well with your internal beliefs. I think that it's really good to hear that still, because I'm not sure I hear it as much. People who've been places 25, 30 years, we're often encouraged to hop around, which has benefits, but it's also okay to find that diamond, to find your place, to find your home and build there, because you have sustainability, you have consistency. Even though your students are going to refresh every few years, that means you're pouring into groups who are contributing to our society. You're helping develop, upstanding citizens, because you're there and you're a benchmark. You are a person that we know this type of help is going to be available year after year after year. You might have been aided in the decision for some parents to move to, I heard she's still there. Yeah, we're going to go to this school. Things like that are really true, because referrals, still hold really strong weight. And your work product that you put out time after time holds a lot of weight with individuals in their decision making too. So, yay, thank you for sharing that. And Ms. Tracy, would you like to go?
Sure. So I started out, I went to Belmont in Nashville for music. Actually, I started out as a music major.
Oh, so you should Wayne.
Oh, no.
Just kidding.
No. But, just that after first semester, just feeling really overwhelmed and like this is I'm around people who are way better than me and that sort of thing. And so just feeling really unhappy and stressed. And so somehow I wound up in the social work department because I think I kind of had it in the back of my mind before I decided to study music because I'm adopted. And so I just remembered seeing on the adoption paperwork, that the social worker named me. And so that just kind of stood out. I didn't really know what a social worker did other than that they were involved in adoptions. And so that's kind of what was my go-to after music. And so that's why I chose social work. But like Allison said, like when I got in my intro class, just the description of everything and the mission, of course, at Belmont, it was kind of modeled after the example of Jesus Christ and, really reaching the most marginalized in our society. And that just like really, I remember like crying my first time, like in my intro class, like just tears rolling down because I was just like, this is what I was meant to do. Like, this is what I feel like life is all about anyway. And so to actually find a job that does this, And then in my master's is when I found school social work and decided that that's what I wanted to do. I was already working in the school system, so it seemed like a perfect kind of natural fit. And then kind of what Eileen was saying too, it's like I don't really get burnt out because it most of the time, like, I mean, yes, there's frustrations and things, but you run into such a vast variety of people and just groups, like even within from school to school, but just getting to help families and parents and kids and staff. There's just such variety, and it all seems like for a bigger purpose of like, actually we are the ones in the schools that get to be behind the scenes and figure out things for families that truly make a difference and that are lasting. It's like, this is really, I don't know, it just feels like more like a calling, and that when you're doing it, it doesn't feel so much like work. It's just like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, what we're all supposed to be doing anyway, as human beings. So
Right. You're absolutely right. I love that last little piece, what we're all supposed to be doing. Of course, it sounds, really simple, and it seems like that's something everybody would recognize, but it doesn't happen that way, which is why we still have this profession, why we, need so many individuals who are like-minded like us on the podcast here, because it's, students feel displaced. They have needs, and so to hear you say you started out in one area, music, and then able to realize about myself, you know what, I'm overwhelmed. This may not be the place for me, and be able to, change in that way is a great story to share. And I think, they'll be able to witness that I might start it out, in this particular situation or in this type of environment, but there's still greater, waiting for me to hear all these different stories of growth and connection, because, you chose, what feels good inside and what kind of impact do I want to make. And then, of course, being able to access information about what it is, and what we do made all the difference for all of us here, today. So thank you so much for sharing that with me. The next question we have is, if you could go back in time, would you change or would you have taken a different pathway? If so, why or why not?
No, my answer is no. I would not change a thing.
Okay.
Even being an older learner. I didn't graduate till I was 25, but no, it all led me to here. So I'm good.
Right.
I would probably just, not do education and go straight into social work rather than spending the time with the education, which I was not going to be a great teacher. So I would definitely have just made myself go into the path of social worker sooner.
So you were able to figure out what didn't work, best for you by that experience. But, other students, they may hear that and say, well, let me look at the requirements. Let me look at what an actual day is. Let me do some shadowing so that I can have real experiential on the job exposure before I commit 3-4 years to training in school. And they realize, no, I don't want to be at school for 8 hours a day, only in the classroom, So I think that that's a very honest, real answer,
I'm with Allison. I wouldn't change anything. I'm very happy where I am.
Yeah. Hey, some of those bumps make us into, better people. When sometimes you're going through adverse things, it makes us stronger, wiser. So I totally understand, and also appreciative of where we are and of processes. Like you said, being an older learner, a lot of people are hesitant. They don't want to, take on new things. I want to do what works. But because this field requires us to contact so many different people and situations, you're constantly reaching out, trying to figure out, what's out there new, or what should I be learning about? What's changed the world so that I need to be, more present for, or increase my skills around. Of course, coming out of a 3-year pandemic, we all learned about how to engage students in different ways without being in person. We all learned that sometimes, even though we could be close with the student, being able to see into their world virtually might be totally different, so now we do a bit more motivational interviewing so that they feel more comfortable sharing with us. So there's lots of things that happen in the world that, being a lifelong learner benefits us from. So I completely agree with you, Allison, on that. Anybody else like to share?
No, I would just say I wouldn't do anything differently either. The only thing I would, if I could do things differently, it's one of those things where I would have paid more attention in school. Like I hurry, like there's things I tell people now, it's like things that you learn in school. It's so much, it's funny how they make more sense now that you're in the world, like in the world doing them.
Mhm.
Sometimes in class when you're paying attention and you're like, oh, you don't always get everything. Or maybe it's just me, I'm more of a hands-on person. When you're
Mhm.
actually doing it in the film, like, oh gosh, that makes so much more sense. I can see it now. I'm a visual person, so I see it. If I could do that, I've paid more attention in class, I admit it. But now it makes more sense, you know?
Mhm.
So, but as far as doing like my pathway, I wouldn't do anything different.
Change.
I'm where
Yeah.
I want to be.
Yeah.
I think I'm trial and error from start of college till now. I think I'm supposed to be where I'm at. I think that the background, the experience that I was able to gain in those different realms of the mental health behavioral field, it's allowed me to develop, understand my strengths, my weaknesses, be able to understand and realize the importance of connecting with kids, connecting with others, showing your humanity, being honest, just truly authentic, and paying attention. Eileen said paying attention in school. I have kids, they will become so upset when it comes to math, and just when I'm talking with them and processing with them, I'm like, let me see this, and I'm like, oh, I would be acting like this too. This does not make sense. This is math isn't my strong suit either. It's okay. Like, we will work through it together. So then going to that teacher and being like, can you show us how to do it? Because I don't know. And then just being able to show that humanity side, like, we are not perfect. We are not, glorious, do no wrong. We make mistakes. We don't know everything, but we will definitely try to help you get there. So I think just the background of where all the experiences I've had, and now I think I'm good where I'm at.
Right. It's feeding into the type of practitioner that you are, because you had, not a straight line to get there. There were some changes along the way. And I was, when you were talking earlier about the balance, I was thinking about that. Like when you said, oh, I would have paid more attention. I'm like, oh my goodness, I felt that same way my whole life. I'm currently working on a PhD, and I'm like trying to draw on things from a few years ago or even 7 years ago. And I'm like, how do I not know this? But that's okay, because, you go back and access the resources, or, read books or sign up for another course, so that you can, pull from things as needed. But I wouldn't change anything, because it made me into a person who is super observant now, made me into a person who remains flexible, who promotes understanding, who always gives grace, So I too, I agree. I wouldn't change a thing. So thank you all for sharing that. Our last question is, what would you suggest to young people who are trying to identify whether or not a possible career in this field is right for them? Just some parting advice.
I would say if there's an opportunity to shadow or visit or something like that, I think that's like the best advice. Or I mean, or a piece of, maybe not the best, but a piece of advice is to spend a day, shadow, see if it's something that you really like to do or not. Because there's pieces of our job that are difficult or a challenge. There's pieces of our day that are mundane. You got paperwork and things like that.
Right.
There's pieces of it that are emotionally hard and challenging. But there's huge pieces of it that are rewarding and even fun. You have a wide range. There's pieces of our day that, I think it was Allison that said it, how we have a day planned. It can look that way on our calendar, but the day gets blown up, and so you have to ask, is that fit your personality or not? And the beautiful thing that I love about social work, behavioral health, is that it's so broad, and the school social works, the school setting may not be for you, but social work in general, you could probably find a fit no matter where you wanted to be. A population, a setting, something like that. That's what I love that about social work. But I would say shadow somebody, see what might fit, see if you like it or not.
Also for like students who are interested in the school setting, I mean, I think an important piece of advice that we run into when we are interviewing interns or potential new hires is just that they're like, oh yeah, I always wanted to do school social work, or I thought about it. It's like, if you're thinking about it or you think it's a serious interest, to make sure you get your field placement or your experience in a school setting, because some people don't realize you have to have that to get your school social work license. And so they want to, but they didn't realize that. And then they get to the end of their coursework and they're too far in to do another placement or, to go back and take the class. So I think that would be my advice, is just that, like, in addition to what Eileen said, to shadow. Every district is different. So just because you've seen school social work in one district, it could look completely different in another one, and from state to state. So I know our national organization is trying to do a lot to kind of realign everybody, but it's really hard to do, and we're not there yet. So see what school social work really looks like around you and places that you're interested in. And then if you think it's something you want to do fairly early on, just go ahead and get the requirements that you need for your license, so it doesn't hold you up later.
And I would also say, I mean, this job is for people or individuals that are flexible and that are open to working with all ages, parents, students, teachers, principals, community members, open to whether you're working individually with children or going to a family's home, to do something. It's just the environments are kind of everywhere. The people you work with are all kinds of people from all kinds of places. And so, again, being open to all of that, or to, well, I would never do that, or I'm not going to do that, or I don't want a job, these sorts of things. So if you're the kind of person that is open to all of those things and changes and wanting to make a difference in all people's lives, it is a great job. And just being open to all the experiences that will come with it, because it's not any school social worker I know could never say, well, I only do these 3 things, or there's only I just want to do this part of school social work, because that's not a thing. So being super flexible is very important also.
Anybody else? Well, thank you all so much for sharing your parting thoughts and information. I too wholeheartedly agree. Having experiential on-the-job exposure is hugely important, and how different environments can be. So that's all really, really great information. And thank you for everything that you shared today. I know you're very, very busy, but I am so grateful to have such a varied group of, young and old and new and experienced and all in between here today, to just share what it's been like, what you've learned, what you do. I'm sure this will be a very helpful experience and podcast for those who decide to listen. If you don't have any questions or comments, I will hopefully speak to or see you all again soon.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to listen to our podcast, brought to you by the Smart Connections podcast from the Smart Center at the University of Memphis, as well as the Pathways to Behavioral Health Careers Project. If you or anyone you know needs any information from the Smart Center, please contact us at 901-678-1636 or email us at smartcenter@memphis.edu. You can also learn more about us at our website, memphis.edu/smartcenter.